Welcome to the Dark Stream. I'm BOOKSTRAM, and tonight we are actually doing a book stream. Some of you have probably heard of this book. It's called SJWs Always Lie, and I published it back in 2015, and we released the audiobook about 18 months ago. But what has changed, and the reason that we are talking about it now, is twofold. Number one, yeah I've got to change the title of the dark stream. I'll get around to it after we record this. Anyhow, the reason that this is worth talking about and listening to and so forth is, number one, we now control all of our audio rights again. And so we've obtained all 45 books back from Audible. They'll still be available on Audible, but they're not going to be exclusive to Audible anymore. Yeah. Shout out to all the bears. Architect Bear, Chorizo Bear, Bonnie Bear, Bear Gribble, Convert to Polar Bear. Nice to see all the Owen Benjamin fans in the house. So anyhow, part of why I'm talking about this is because we are launching, or we have launched, our own direct audio bookstore. Right now there's only 5 or 6 books up there, but there's going to be more every day or two. And one of the first ones that we did, the first ones that we put out on the archavencomics.com store, is SJWs Always Lie. And there's a reason for that, because a lot of people need to become acquainted with the information in the book. Because what we're seeing is that the SJWs are getting increasingly desperate because their narrative is not holding up. More and more people are seeing through their narrative. As Jeremy notes, more and more people are asking, who is your master? Uh-oh. This is double trouble. We actually have a VFM bear. That's frightening. So, Not Soy says, triggered a Jordan Peterson fan in the Steven Crowder comment section because Jordan Peterson is a Christian. Yeah, everybody knows he isn't. Architect Bear says, started reading rhetoric once I read SJWs Always Lie. Once you learn about the difference between rhetoric and dialectic, you can't stop seeing it. You can't stop paying attention to it. The streams are on iTunes, by the way. There's a link right below the video, I believe. It's listed under Vox Day, not as Darkstream. So, yeah, actually, I'm going to fix that right now because people keep bringing it up. Hang on a second. I neglected to do my usual setup stuff. And so I will get to that right now. Make sure we get the stream. I don't know if they'll let me modify it live, but we'll give it a try. BOOKSTREAM, dealing with Deplatformings. Okay, I have no idea whether, it says it's saving it, so let me know if it saves that. I'm going to try changing the thumbnail too. We'll see how we do that. Interesting that they let you do this live. That's pretty cool, actually. Just a moment. And we have changed the thumbnail. Any thoughts on Steven Crowder? Not really. I mean, other than I know that Owen speaks highly of him. I know that Milo speaks highly of him. Jay from NYC says he's still a bit stunned by the Fight Club revolution last night. Fight Club revelation last night. Yeah, I'm sure it's surprising if you're a fan. Turka says, I bought the 4 Generations of Modern Warfare. It was enlightening. Can't wait to get my hands on Martin Van Creveld's literature. It's highly recommended. And in fact, we're going to be publishing one of Martin Van Creveld's classics, The Privileged Sex, in the next month or two. So we're actually trying to sort out the cover and so forth now. Charlemagne says, oh, good, you did see the title change. Cool. Charlemagne says, I can't stop seeing rhetoric and dialectic everywhere. It's the same kind of perspective I gained after listening to Scott Adams for a while. Well, you know what they say. Scott Adams, Aristotle, practically the same thing. Should we all be doomsday preppers? No. I think that you should be prepared. I think that you should have a reasonable supply of food, ideally a source of water, certainly plenty of weaponry and ammunition, but it's important not to overdo it. I know people who have been preparing for the end of the world since the 1970s. So it seems a shame to let life pass you by in order to prepare for the end of it. Let's see here. Sugarpeth says, Molyneux and Pesta didn't catch it in over an hour talk. Perhaps it's only obvious to the higher IQ wielding Vox. Well, I'm wondering if they were basing their talk on the movie rather than the book. It's very, very obvious if you've read the book. If you've seen the movie before you read the book, then maybe it misleads you. CC McDuck says, my sister-in-law only speaks in rhetoric. I always just assumed she was either dishonest or a moron. Now I realize she actually believes her arguments are legitimate. That's right. That's rhetorical speakers are analyzing they structure their arguments on the ethymeme. And the ethymeme is a pseudo-syllogism. And the ethymeme is true as long as the emotion is congruous. And so when you have someone who speaks in rhetoric and their ethymemes are congruous with their emotions, they believe that it is logically true. They don't realize that they're not dealing in logic at all. Enthymeme, not ethymeme. As long as their enthymemes are emotionally congruent, they think that they have constructed a correct logical syllogism. They haven't. They're speaking a different language. They're not speaking in logic. So, are rhetorical speakers beneath us? Depends on your context. Certainly they are below the dialectic speakers in terms of their capacity for logic. They are below the dialectic in terms of their inability to learn from information. But that doesn't mean that they're not intelligent. One of the biggest things that I needed to understand was to stop dismissing the opinions of intuitive thinkers simply because they either couldn't explain their conclusions or they assigned ridiculous ex post facto explanations for their conclusions, and so because their ex post facto explanations were ridiculous, I rejected the conclusion, and the conclusion would often turn out to be correct. And so I had to learn that when somebody is intuitive, you just have to ignore everything they say about why. Once you hear because from an intuitive thinker, just ignore everything they say. It's not going to make sense. And if you pay attention to it, then you will erroneously conclude that they don't know what they're talking about, that they're wrong. The problem is, even when they're right, they don't know why they're right. They can't explain why they're right. You just have to trust them on the basis of their track record. Question: will you create triple media bundles, paper, audio, ebook, now that you have distribution for all three? I don't think that would make much sense because we have different distribution systems. We are already including the ebooks in two formats with the audio work. In fact, JDP Jr. 46 said, got SJW's audio from Archhaven last night. Nice work, Vox. When is Double Down coming? We will probably have Double Down up tomorrow or this weekend at the latest. M. Anthony Dunn asks, why are there so many homosexuals on the alt-right? I think it's because they are natural outsiders. I think that it's because they are natural contrarians, and so a lot of them naturally gravitate to contrarian thinking, especially, and they also tend to gravitate towards masculinity, and so in search of it. And so it's not surprising, and especially because the current authority is so utterly female that it is massively offensive to them. So, what's going on with No Wither? We gave John C. Wright the rights to those books back, and so he is publishing them with his own custom publishing house. John C. Wright's a great writer. We love publishing his stuff, but that particular work didn't do particularly well for us, and it wasn't a story that I was particularly interested in. We're still publishing his Moth and Cobweb stuff. In fact, we're also publishing Moth and Cobweb in comic form, and in fact, we just finished the first issue tonight. That'll be coming out very soon, as soon as we get that going. Let's see. Conversion from rhetorical thinking to dialectical is very painful and takes time. Well, I don't think so. I think that for a lot of people, if you're a natural rhetoric thinker, you're never really going to be very good at thinking in dialectic. There's a lot of people who can't do it. Aristotle tells us that. And so I think the thing to focus on is that your rhetoric is focused on the truth, if you're a rhetoric speaker. And if you're a dialectic speaker, you need to understand that you just don't speak the way that most people do, and that therefore they're not going to find what you say convincing. So, Tough Nugget said, I hope you're still on good terms with John C. Wright. Yeah, we are. There's no personal problems between us. We have some fairly strong disagreements, but we always have. We always have had. But I love John. I think that John is the most gifted science fiction writer writing today. His Superluminary is brilliant. His Superluminary is the best science fiction that's been published in the last 10 years, no question. You will never hear me say anything negative about John C. Wright. I think he's brilliant, a brilliant writer, and he's absolutely fabulous. So, is that chair as uncomfortable as it looks? It would be if I didn't have a good cushion for it. Looks like the moderators are on duty at stream.me. Well done. Is it uncommon to be skilled in dialectic and rhetoric? It's extremely uncommon. And so, as I have repeatedly explained, I cannot turn up the sound until I get a gain booster for this particular microphone. Somebody was saying, oh, Vox can't even figure out how to boost the gain through the software. I know how to boost the gain through the software. The problem is that the quality sucks. It will distort. And I've already got the gain turned up 100% on the audio equipment. And so, when you get the hardware gain booster called a cloud lifter is much, much better than just increasing the existing signal because it cleans up and boosts the signal. So remember, I started out in the music world, so I'm a little bit picky about this kind of stuff. A preamp is going to eliminate half the chat. Yeah. So let's talk a bit about the deplatformings. What deplatformings are there? There's a question from Ben. Can you recommend a resource on rhetoric dialectic outside of Aristotle? This is the book. I mean, honestly, this is the book that
now that you know an SJW
that back into play. SJWs always lie. It's got a whole chapter devoted to that, and then SJWs always double down has a bit more. So I would strongly recommend that. Why even bother explaining to them, Vox? People will always find something to complain about. If I can say this without sounding too arrogant, the reason is that I am very, very accustomed to having to talk down to people. Pretty much everyone. Not absolutely everyone, but just about everyone. And what people tend to forget is that I have a difficult time calculating exactly how far down I have to go. And so when I miscalculate, it seems like I am patronizing. But I'm not. I'm honestly not. I just have no idea where the interlocutor is. And so I just take a stab. Sometimes I guess too low and I sound patronizing. Sometimes I guess too high and I end up confusing the person or not helping them. And so it's just one of those things, I'm accustomed to hearing a lot of what I consider to be dumb questions. And so my instinct is just to try to address them. And so, well, thank you. Bandit Keith says, hey, at least I'm very diplomatic about it. I try to be. I mean, I wasn't when I was younger. I was a lot less patient when I was younger. And so, Wade Wilson says, I notice how much you have to dumb things down when I compare what you say to what you write. Well, yeah, it is different, but keep in mind, I'm not complaining. This is what I'm here to do. I'm not here to read what I've written. He says, as he's about to literally play an audio sample of what he's written. Yes, Vox is allowing general questions. Annabelle says, this is what I was laughing at about. Sounds a bit like you're on the spectrum. I'm not even remotely on the spectrum. In fact, I am nearly to the extent it's possible to be on the opposite of the spectrum, I am. I took one of those, autism quizzes that the or those, not quizzes, but went over those check boxes that the psychologists use to diagnose it. And I think you needed to score, if you needed to score something like 30, I think I scored 6. I am far too empathetic to be even remotely on the spectrum. The thing is that I don't care what most people think. Autism is not about not caring about what people think. Autism is about not understanding what other people think or what other people feel. And so, Tim Yellick says, maybe you just think you need to talk down, and that just makes you come off condescending. Just saying, no, I do need to talk down. I mean, anyone who knows me, who has been involved with me in any way, has worked with me on anything, understands that the way that I think is not one that is normal. And so, I mean, like, for example, we're working on this Indiegogo situation, right? I'm working with 2 very, very high caliber, very, very expensive lawyers. I mean, we're talking about, people who work at the kind of firms that make other lawyers, practically genuflect. And, at one point, one of the guys said, you really should have been a lawyer, because I was picking up things and suggesting lines of attack that hadn't occurred to either one of them, despite the fact that they both have, 25 plus years of practicing law, and they're very, very good at what they do. But, it's just a reality that you have to deal with. Owen, it's like Owen laughs at people who, say, well, you're not really that tall. He's like, I'm nearly 6'8". What's wrong with you? When people have been telling me that you're stupid, you're crazy, and all this sort of thing. It's like, no, my IQ is farther away from yours than yours is away from literal retards. So do the math. Larson Dillon says, do you see a rift coming in the Catholic Church along progressive versus traditional grounds? I think coming is not the way to put it. I think it's already here. There are plenty of Catholics who think that an inquisition is long overdue. Can it fix damages as exemplified by Francis? Yes, certainly. If you've read enough of the Catholic Church history, then you know that it's been worse. As bad as it is now, it has been worse. And it has been worse for longer. I've been to Avignon. I know about the history of the split, the black popes. There's been as many as 3 popes at one time. There's been war between the rival popes, the rival papacies. It's not at that point yet. It can come back. But that being said, the Roman Catholic Church is highly converged right now. I think there are seriously legitimate questions about who the real pope is. I'm not a Catholic. I'm not up on the Roman Catholic internal law, but I certainly don't doubt that there is a very, very serious rift, and that ever since Vatican II and possibly since Vatican I, that has been a very serious problem. But let's get back to deplatforming. And speaking of deplatforming, if you're listening to this on YouTube, I would very, very strongly urge you to start following my channel on stream.me. And I would also urge you, if you are following Owen, if you're subscribed to Owen on YouTube, that you start following him on stream.me as well. I don't know if you're aware, but YouTube just deplatformed somebody with 400,000 subscribers today. And, Roku just deplatformed Alex Jones's channel. And so, this is all continuing despite the fact that they are scared because the God Emperor's new Deputy Attorney General just announced that they're going to be looking at antitrust action and looking into what these various social media companies are doing. And so, are they going to, do anything to Owen? Are they going to do anything to me? I don't know. I tend to doubt it simply because, we know perfectly well that I'm not going to take it lying down. We've been prepared for all of these deplatformings from the beginning. Yeah, that's right. JD Curtis points out that they also went after Tommy Robinson as well. And so, what I think that, part of the problem, Shat in the Woods Bear, Owen says Owen's stream doesn't come up on stream.me. Yeah, I'm going to talk to him and show him how to do it so that you can dual stream and dual chat. If you may not realize this, but the chat that you're seeing on the screen is actually the stream.me chat, whereas I'm seeing the other chat as well on the side using Streamlabs OBS. So, see, that's why I'm a Streamlabs all-star. So, and the other thing that you can keep in mind is that, I almost always stream at the same time. Like tonight, I didn't have the ability to put up a early warning that there was going to be anything, and so so I just thought, well, okay, I've got a little time, and we're going to go ahead and just hop on and go live without a warning. And I mean, it does have a negative effect. You can see that it could be just because of the BOOKSTREAM, but you can see that there's only 600 viewers on YouTube and 44 on stream.me. But maybe that's because people were not interested in a BOOKSTREAM, or maybe it's because there wasn't a warning. So anyhow, the John Paul, stop going, I have a question. Just ask the freaking question. I'll either ignore it or I'll answer it. And if you want to make sure that I answer it, try the super chat function. That's what it's for. Hey there, hi there, ho there, bear, says, I just jumped from YouTube to stream.me. See, it can be done. Here's a good question. Do you, I just missed it. Oh, is it possible to resist deplatforming if the potential victim in question is prepared for it? Yeah, it is. I mean, I think that we're going to see people behave very differently once they see what the results of the Indiegogo arbitration is. You never know what is going to happen. You can never be sure. But I have to say that our case is really, really strong. I mean, both the lawyers have said that they have yet to see a case that was this open and shut, dead obvious. And so, we'll see. We'll see. But one of the problems is, one of the reasons that people like Alex Jones keep getting deplatformed is because they don't fight back. I guarantee you that nobody is particularly interested in deplatforming me if they don't want to see every single thing that their employees have said about me all over the internet and handed to the Trump administration and handed to the governments that are currently investigating them for their various tax evasions and little games that they're playing. Tim Yellick says, do you have any info on Alex Jones banning? Some people say he is a gatekeeper. No, he's not. And his banning is an excuse to start mass banning. Well, it's testing the waters without question. No question. Crazy Chameleon says, Vox Day, will you and Owen team up again for another crossover stream? Almost certainly. Castelia House is going to be publishing Owen's next book. And so without question, there's going to be a book stream talking about it. Let's see. All right, well, let me play this for you first. This is a book stream after all. I want to introduce the audiobook of SJWs Always Live to you. SJWs Always Lie to you. So I'm going to play a sample for you now.
Now that you know an SJW attack will probably come as a surprise, you need to know what to do when it comes. And just as there are 8 stages to an SJW attack, there are 8 things you must keep in mind when responding to one. Number 1, rely on the 3 R's. Recognize it is happening, remain calm, realize no one cares. The first thing to do when attacked by SJWs is recognize that you are under SJW attack, remain calm, and realize that no one else cares. You need to understand that the attack is happening, accept that it's happening, and refrain from the temptation to try to make it not be happening. Do not panic. Don't go running to others for help or sympathy. Don't try to convince everyone around you how outrageous or unfair the accusation is, and don't explain to anyone how little you deserve the way you're being treated. They don't care. They really don't. Think about how little you cared when someone else was previously being attacked by SJWs and how little you did to support him, let alone take action to stop the attack. That's exactly how much your colleagues and acquaintances care about you being attacked and exactly how much they're going to do to stop it. We are living in a time of fear and economic uncertainty. Everyone knows on some level that it could just as easily be them instead of you. Everyone is afraid of becoming a target. So while your colleagues might express sympathy to your face, more than a few of them are feeling at least a mild sense of relief that it's you and not them who are on the current sacrifice laid out on the SJW altar. And some of them probably feel that even if you don't...
So, that's Bob Allen. He is reading SJWs Always Lie. He also does SJWs Always Double Down, which is the sequel. If you want to pick a copy of it up, the best place to do so is at arkhavencomics.com. The direct link will be below the video, and it's $14.99, and it includes free copies of the ebook in both EPUB and Mobi for Kindle format. So, highly recommended because it explains to you not only the whole rhetoric dialectic thing, but it explains to you the way that SJW attacks happen and the way that you can deal with them. That doesn't mean that you're going to avoid problems. It doesn't mean that you're going to save your job, but it does help you understand what's going on, and it does prevent you from panicking or uh, being disappointed in the reactions of others. Ganji Blob Flankus asks, what is the relationship between evil and entropy? Is one a subset of the other? Do they overlap or are they separate? I believe they're separate. I think that evil is intentional. Evil is intelligent. Entropy is simply the natural state of a fallen creation. Things tend to break, things tend to collapse. But there's times that we don't know the difference. If I sound a little down tonight, it's because this morning we were really kind of feeling optimistic. My wife's dog had gained another 1.5 kilos, and then this afternoon suddenly was just in tremendous pain. And so, we don't know if it's something temporary. We don't know if it's, an indication that that this can't go on. So what do? You do the only thing that you can do. You pray for them. Is that evil or is it entropy? I think it's entropy, but sometimes it feels like it's evil. And so it's just hard to say. But there is a difference. There is a real difference between evil and entropy. It's the difference between, you got bad luck and, and happen to walk out in front of a car, and you were walking down the sidewalk and someone intentionally ran you over. That's the difference between evil and entropy. And sometimes it's hard to tell the difference. But, life goes on. And, I very much appreciate the emotional support and the prayers that all you guys have, or that so many of you guys have offered. It's been great. How could entropy be evil? It's a force of nature. Well, that's what I'm saying. I don't think that entropy... Well, okay, the way that entropy could be considered evil is if you think about creation being perfect and good, and a falling away from that perfection being evil. But I don't see it that way. I don't think it's that way. I think that if there's a relationship, it's that entropy is a consequence of evil. And so Marcus Aurelius has a good question about SJWs always lie. He says, why did you select converged as a descriptor? I did it because that's from the original source of social justice. John Stuart Mill described the ultimate goal of social justice as being the convergence of all individuals and institutions towards the final narrative. And so, to the extent an individual or institution is converging towards that narrative, it is therefore converged. So it's directly rooted in the conception of social justice as explained by John Stuart Mill in 1861, something like that. So, Someone said, I thought you're only supposed to pray to God. Yes, you pray to God, you pray for other people. It's one of those bizarre constructions that somehow got into the media, and people started talking about um, thoughts and prayers to the families. It doesn't make any sense. It makes no sense. Uh, Ever thought of getting an African gray? Absolutely not. Uh, I grew up with my best friend having a parrot in the family. Those things live forever and they're annoying. Um, I'm not a big fan of parrots. Um, Also, I'm apparently not good with birds. I accidentally killed my best friend's cockatiel. Cockatoo. He had a bird that he used to let wander around our living room, and I got beaten with a last second shot in NCAA basketball on the Super Nintendo, and went, damn it! It was not good. Um, it was kind of funny though when my friend came home and I said, "Hey, I'm really sorry, but I killed your bird." He looked at me with like the most hurt puppy expression on his face that you've ever seen and said, "Why?" It's like, I didn't do it on purpose. But I did think that that was probably not the best testimony to my character. I told my best friend that, and he assumed I did it on purpose. So, anyhow, um, yeah, it's not the first time I've heard the whole bird killer thing. So it was it was it was really sad. So, um, anyhow, why do SJWs feel the need to look different and stand out in a crowd? Because there's no other way that they can demonstrate their moral superiority. Also, part of it is that they tend to be very ugly, unattractive people. And so they're just trying to do anything they can to look different. They would rather look different than look plain. They want to be noticed. I mean, if you notice, everything they do is to be noticed. They're screaming, "Notice me, notice me, notice me." And their actions and their appearance are both designed to try to attract attention. Fox Day, the bane of SJWs and birds. Dave at stream.me says, do you think of anything you'd change in SJWL, or once it's done, it's done? I'm definitely a once it's done type of guy. I actually have a tremendous problem even remembering the stuff that I've written. I almost never go back to look at what I've done. That's one reason why I don't voice my own audiobooks. I don't like to read what I've written. LJ Third says, Cuomo is trying to pass a gun-grabbing red flag law in New York. Most counties will vote against it, but it's likely going to pass anyway thanks to NYC. Any tips for effective opposition when NYC outnumbers the rest of the state? I think that you've got to start challenging these things in the courts. A lot of the stuff that they're doing is openly unconstitutional. I also think that you probably need, in upstate New York, they need to start a movement to secede or somehow separate from New York City. That's one of the ugly things about the current system, is the way that the urban centers are able to outvote the rural areas just because there's more people. And then they can tell people who are living in totally different circumstances and often are totally different nations how to live. This is why centralization is bad. Centralization is a form of imperialism. It's political imperialism. And it's it's not viable over time. So who edits the editor? No one. In fact, all my books are unedited. I mean, all my books that I've published in the past, I don't know, 12, 14 years, um, some of them I don't even have proofread, as you can tell. We take a iterative process to it. Rapidly, 2,000 pairs of eyes are a lot better than 2 or 3, and so we put them out there as clean as we can, and then we get all the typos fixed in the first week. That's why you always see our ebooks out before the print books. Are tattoos a warning sign of a person being an SJW? Potentially, yes. Tattoos are also for attention. Doesn't mean they're an SJW, but they're almost certainly further up the attention needing spectrum than the average. Good the fake Brexit deal failed. That's right. Roll on hard Brexit. Exactly. The best deal is no deal, because all the quote unquote Brexit deals were just basically fake negotiations between two groups of people who both want Britain in the EU. Question: is a movie based on alt hero still in the works? Yes, absolutely. I'm just not directly involved in that because I don't really bring much to the table in terms of those preparations, and I'm focused right now on our legal situation with Indiegogo. Zoe Bear, wow, thank you, Zoe Bear, very generous. He sends $50 as a stream gratitude. I appreciate that. It's very meaningful, just so you understand, to support these streams. And I'm not talking about mine in particular. I'm saying in general. It's so important to put your resources where you want to support. I mean, the thing that's so strange to me about conservatives is the way that they will happily hand over hundreds, even thousands of dollars every year to Disney, which is attempting to destroy their faith, destroy their family, destroy their way of life, destroy their civilization, and not support the people that are defending it, not support the people that they actually like. This never makes any sense to me, It's very, very important to do that, whether you're talking about a stream like Zoe Bear there, whether you're talking about buying a book, going to buying a ticket for a comedy show. All of those things are really, really important because it's what allows people like us, the unauthorized right, the unauthorized in general, to do what we do. Otherwise, you're just leaving it up to the gatekeepers. And I understand a lot of people have limited resources. I'm not saying, oh, you must do this. I'm just saying that if you have resources, choose where to put them wisely. Spiderbit threw in 5 and said, I just bought SJW's Always Lie and Jordanetics audiobooks. That's awesome. I appreciate that. And, another thing that you can do that doesn't cost you anything is, review stuff. Like, do ratings on the iTunes podcasts, do reviews on Amazon. Chris Malmgren bought into the argument because he just threw in $5 without a question at all. But if you do think of a question, Chris, go ahead and throw one out there. I'll remember. Fozzie Bear, I don't think Crowder fears mainstream. Like I said, he fears the conservative powers that be. You piss them off and you're gone. Gavin, Alex, Faith Goldie, etc. Oh, that's almost certainly true. Yeah, I haven't mentioned this, but I really should. At Dark Lord Designs, we've got a bunch of T-shirts at Crypto Fashion. It's crypto.fashion, and it is. We've got a lot of. We've actually got like SJW's Always Lie shirts. We've got all kinds of stuff. You should check it out. And yeah, as a general rule, guys, I wouldn't talk about where you live on these streams and stuff. SJWs watch this stuff to try to like find out where people are and where they work and to deplatform them. So it's always a good idea to keep up a level of operational security. What do you think of Crowder having on Peterson? I think that he is working to appeal to as many people as possible. Peterson's extremely popular. It's interesting that people say, well, why are you still talking about Peterson? Is anyone still paying attention to him? Read the Instapundit comments on a post that refers to Jordan Peterson. When I looked at it, there were 93 comments, and I would say that 85 of them were like, Jordan Peterson is so wise and he's helping so many people and this and that and the other thing. And then there's like 3 people who have obviously either read Jordanetics or watched these videos. And, there's most people out there are still caught up under the spell. Tony Voci asks, could you do a breakdown of Buckley's conservatism versus Birch's conservatism? I'll do better. I've addressed it in Conservative, but it definitely merits a dark stream, if not a Voxiversity. We're going to go actually to the source. We're going to skip both Buckley and Birch. We're going to go right to the canons of the modern conservative movement. Benjamin Collins asks, opinion on Alex Jones's libertarianism. I think he's learning otherwise very quickly. I was one of the best known libertarians on the internet for years. If you looked up the lists they used to do of the libertarian sites, I was usually like in the top 20, I think, my blog. I discovered otherwise. I learned otherwise. There are lots of people, and here's the term that I think that we should start using, because they've poisoned the term alt-right, and I don't believe in running away from labels. So I'm not at all. If people say you're alt-right, I'm like, yeah, you're absolutely right. I am alternative right. But I always used it in the sense of an alternative to the mainstream conservative movement. But what I think a better term now, because of the way they've poisoned that, and a term that they cannot poison so easily, is to use the term the unauthorized right. Because it clearly sets the difference between the fake right of Richard Spencer and the others, who have literally nothing to do with the right wing. All of their politics are of the left. And the controlled right, the approved opposition of the Ben Shapiro's, the intellectual dark web, the Jonah Goldbergs, the National Reviews, the mainstream conservative movement. It's not really mainstream. Trump has demonstrated that it's not mainstream. Shat in the Woods Bear says, Vox, do you know of Tom Woods? Of course I know Tom Woods. Tom Woods is fantastic. Tom Woods is great. I've been on his radio show, I think twice. He moderated a debate between me and Bob Murphy on economics. He's a great guy. And I think that he too is moving from raw libertarianism to the unauthorized right. I don't like the term dissident right. We're not dissidents. Solzhenitsyn was a dissident. Just because I got kicked off of Twitter does not make me a dissident. Let's see. Unauthorized conservative would go over easy to normie conservative. Well, that's exactly it, because that's what we are. We are of the right, but we are not authorized. We speak our opinions without seeking permission. It sets the distinction between an Owen Benjamin who just speaks the truth without fear and a Steven Crowder who is concerned about what might happen to him and his show if he dares to speak too much truth. So how about not left? Well, yeah, I think that anyone who claims to be on the right should at the very least have a majority of identifiable positions and policies that belong on the right of God, king, country. So, let's see. Do you think economic nationalist protectionist tariffs would work for the UK? Certainly. Free trade devastated Great Britain. Free trade bankrupted Great Britain. George Bailey said, I started following JBP when he said he found a way to monetize SJWs. Thought I found another Vox until I read Jordanetics. Yeah. It's interesting that if you're on the left, but you monetize SJWs, you seem to do a hell of a lot better than if you're on the unauthorized right. SJWs Always Lie has sold very well. It's sold over 25,000 books. That's very good. But it hasn't sold anywhere nearly as many as 12 Rules for Life has. Despite the fact that it's a much, much better book. Joshua May is very complimentary. He says, I just love how simple and devastating the terms Vox Day wants us to use are. Well, I'm a dialectic speaker who very fluently speaks rhetoric. And so any term that I'm comfortable using is usually going to be fairly effective. JBP is growing on a good friend of mine. I'm trying to get him away from that. He won't read Jordanetics. What should I do? I would recommend that you read him the selections from Jordan Peterson's own writing that are highlighted in Jordanetics. But don't read them from Jordanetics. Just say, hey, look, this is from Maps of Meaning. And then read him the nightmare stuff and read him the stuff about how he has thoughts that nobody else has ever had. So, Benjamin Collins says, non-converged conservative. I like it dialectically, but it doesn't work rhetorically. Liberated conservative. But we're not conservatives because the conservative movement didn't conserve anything. We're not about conserving things. We're about restoring things. They could call us restoratives. We'll get into the Neo-Palestinian thing later, but I use it to refer to the diaspora in the United States. I do not actually use it to refer to Israel. I respect Israelis. I don't respect the diasporans. Talk to Jack. He's a reasonable dude, easily frightened but reasonable. He might let you back on Twitter if you want. I'm not interested in going back on Twitter. We have our own Twitter. Infogalactic has its own Twitter. You're going to see it soon. So we are all about building our own platforms. Exactly. Reconquistadors. We are about reconquest. Reconquest and inquisition. And that's why they're scared of us. That's why they're scared of us, because they're terrified of a Christian nationalist reconquista. But it is coming. It is absolutely coming, and it is coming all across the West. So anyhow, thanks for tuning in tonight. Remember that you might want to check out the new audiobook for SJWs Always Lie on archavencomics.com. And we will look forward to seeing you at the next dark stream. And I haven't sent the burn unit emails out. Thank you for the reminder. I'll work on that tomorrow. And if you get a chance, pray for our puppy. Thanks a lot. Have a good evening. See you at the next one.